Hey, I'm Osama, a solo game developer working on a dark fantasy fighting game called Juniper Burning. This devlog is a quick rundown on how I choreograph and implement fight animations in my game. If you'd like to see more devlogs from me, go ahead and wishlist the game on Steam to let me know. You can also join the Discord to ask any questions from me or any one of the 70+ developers working on their own games. So a while back I made a counterattack animation that I was really happy with, but now it's time to include some variety and come up with another counter to add to the player's arsenal. So how do I get started? This is the point in development where I start pacing around and try out weird movements in my room. But I eventually settled on something I've actually wanted to throw in my game for a long time, and that is a devastating elbow. Elbows and knees are something I've always wanted to introduce ever since I started training. This was something I was really excited to add, but I need a solid reference. And one fight that kept coming to mind was Jones v Gustafsson 1. I like this move especially because of the detail here where Jones keeps his opponent's left arm occupied with his own so he can safely execute the elbow. Now that I have my reference, I grab the footage and adjust the speed to match what it would be like in real life. Then I cut the clip into its individual frames using free video editing software. Once I have my frames, I begin animating in Blender. I know there are a bunch of advanced time-saving mocap techniques out there, but honestly, animating is my favorite part of development, so I just do it the old-fashioned way. And what I did just now is I took a pose from one of my prior attack deflect animations, and I used that as the starting frame for the counter. From there, I add a new frame and start posing my character to the first reference frame from the footage I grabbed earlier. My character rigging here is a little unorthodox. It's similar to what you'd see in games like Guilty Gear or Dragon Ball FighterZ. This is so that I'm not completely confined to the shape of the mesh, and I have some leeway to move appendages in a way that might seem unnatural at first, but will look better with the in-game camera. I'm also manually animating the clothing. But despite my strange rigging, I still use basic animation principles to guide my process. I start posing from the hips. This is where movement or power is typically generated in the human body, so you'll want to start there. I then use that movement to guide my posing for all the other appendages. So it's hips first, then legs, and then finish up with the upper body. I'm just gonna speed things up here, but if you want to see the full 2-hour unedited version of this section, you can check out my Patreon. But what I'm doing here is essentially repeating the same steps. Add a new frame, start with the hips, and follow with the rest of the body. Okay, so now that we've reached a point where the elbow would make contact, it's time to follow it up with a finishing move. I don't really have a reference for this, but luckily I can repurpose one of my earlier attack animations. So here I just copy the frames from my old animation and paste it into the new one. And here's roughly what it's gonna look like, which is not too bad for a quick and dirty version. Now I just make a few adjustments so that it makes more sense in the context of a follow-up strike where the character slices the enemy's head. I use a bit of my imagination here since I don't have a reference, but it's a pretty simple and quick movement, so we can kinda get away with it. Alright, with that done, we can export the animation and try bringing it into our game engine. And here's what the animation looks like in engine. Now comes the coding part of the process. Like I mentioned earlier, I've already made a counter attack function before, so a lot of this will run on the same code. But there are some adjustments to make. In the first counter attack, there were a lot of fancy camera tricks and cuts, but this second counter attack is a little more straightforward. We're gonna do a halfway camera spin for the elbow strike, and then bring the camera back to normal position for the head slice. So some seemingly simple changes, but it's always easier said than done. Now this is the moment of truth. Let's see how all those changes panned out in the actual gameplay. Okay, so we triggered the first counterattack. Everything is looking good so far, so it's great that nothing broke in the original counter when we made our code changes. But the second counterattack did not trigger. That time it was my fault, I deflected, and it didn't trigger again. And it didn't trigger again. And it didn't trigger. Okay, something's broken, but at this point I really needed to take a shit and call it a day. And that's okay. We'll just have to get to this the next time, where I go through what went wrong, how I fixed it, as well as all the animation iterations for both the main character and the enemy to get to the final result. As you'll see in the next video, what takes us from looking like amateur work to something somewhat professional is iteration. But until then, if you like what you see so far, please wishlist the game on Steam, where you can even try out the demo for free. I really hope you all get the chance to see what this game will look like once it's finished, but I'll need your help in bumping up those wish lists so we can get some visibility on this project. So go ahead and like this video, wishlist on Steam, and try the demo out for yourself. And if you have any suggestions, you can talk to me over on Discord. Thanks so much for sticking around, and I hope to see you on the next one.